Alright, so today we're going to be working on the 92 Chevy K1500. I noticed the other day, in the snow, it wasn't much snow, I would be getting stuck in two-wheel drive, and I'd back up, go forward, and get stuck in the same spot over and over and over again. So I get out and look, thought maybe I had a flat tire or something, but here, this tire here was locked up, and it was just skidding along in the snow. So brought it inside, and we're going to take it apart, see what's going on, and we're going to fix it, because that's what we do. See that? And all the lug nuts are tight, so it's surprising that didn't make any noise. So now, when it was locking up, when I was trying to drive it, it was making a lot of ratcheting noises, clicking noises, popping noises, so I think that wheel bearing locked up, but I had to put it in four-wheel drive to get it to move. I think that the spline's caught in here. I'm hoping it just ripped out the wheel bearing and not the axle shaft, otherwise we're going to have to do the axle shaft and the wheel bearing. But the next set of steps we're going to do, we're going to take out this caliper so we can take off the rotor and get that nut off. Alright, so the next part you're going to want to do, there's two bolts right back here, and that holds your caliper on. And we're going to take those off. Those are Allen head bolts. So we have this fancy-dancy Allen head socket set. And first thing we're going to do, though, before we try taking that off, we're going to spray them down, because those suckers are rusty. Alright. So we put a mix of put some ZEP 45 on there, and we got some of this knocker loose penetrant. Hopefully those two can get the job done. And those bolts on the back side, they're a 9mm Allen. Also, you should really support the vehicle with the jack stand, not just leave it on the jack like I did. But I'm not going underneath it. If it falls, it ain't going to kill me. There we go, keep that from falling. Alright, now with the caliper removed, we should be able to just pull this rotor off. Set that down there. Oh yeah. All right, so we sprayed down the nut here, then that holds on your axle shaft or your CV joint, whatever you want to call it, CV shaft. Holds that onto the hub, which is also your wheel bearing, and there's three bolts on the back side that hold your hub to the knuckle here, and you want to spray those down and let that shit soak. And I think that's probably like 9/16 or something, maybe, not quite sure. But I'm going to go find out and I'll let you know for sure. Those three bolts on the back, they are 15mm. The hub here actually has holes right there, 3 of them, so you can put a socket to take out your bolts. So now we're gonna get a socket on there and see if we can rip that out with the socket.
Hopefully your socket fits. It does.
Well, that one's gonna need some heat yet. And so is that one.
You want to try air?
We can. Boom. Alright, so now we got the bolts that hold the hub on. Now we just need to get this big nut out right here. And that is a 35 millimeter. Alright, so we got the 3 bolts on the back side that hold the hub onto the knuckle. Got those out. Got this big nut off that holds the axle shaft onto the hub. Now we just have to get this hub off. You can take a dead blow, just kind of beat on it on the back side a little bit. If you're beating on it, be careful to make sure you don't damage your dust shield right here. Just kind of hit it a little bit, kind of work it back and forth, and then eventually get it out a little bit. If you look right back here, you can see that there's a little bit of a gap. You can try to get a pry bar in here. Just kind of pry it out a little bit. And you can beat on it while putting some pressure on it with the pry bar. Alright, so now they got that loose, we got to get the spline shaft pushed kind of back in a little bit. If you have a punch, this would be a good time to use a punch. Alright. Oh yeah, that wheel bearing was junk. And I heard that ratcheting noise, so now we're going to inspect the axle shaft. Alright, so now we're going to clean up the axle shaft. Doesn't look like there's anything wrong with that shaft. Alright, so we got our new wheel bearing, axle hub assembly. And we're going to put this back on there. Before we put it back on, though, we're probably going to want to scrape some of this shit off. So we're going to find a scraper and take care of that. Alright, so we kind of just cleaned this up right around the mounting holes a little bit. Got that kind of cleaned up. Now we're going to want to get some brake clean and kind of clean out this right in here. Alright, I'll insert our bolts. Now we're just going to hit it with an impact just to get it tight. We're not actually going to torque it down to the impact because these do have torque specs. And the torque spec for that is 133 foot-pounds. 133. Now we're going to torque them. We're going to recheck that first one. Alright, now we got to put our nut back on. That goes on right there. And then you got to put the washer back on. Then you got to put your nut back on, but your if your nut's dirty, like ours is, we're spraying it out with some brake clean, and we're just going to clean out the inside of the threads. And we're just going to use the impact just to tighten it down. This also has a torque spec. Has a torque spec of 165 pounds. So now we're going to want to clean off our rotor, because we've been touching it with our fingers, which has oil on it. And that oil can actually get on here and kind of contaminate your brake pad. So you want to make sure you clean it with some brake cleaner. You don't want to just use any kind of cleaner. Brake cleaner leaves no residue. And that's why it's used in brake applications. Now we got that done, we can put our rotor back on. Alright. Now we're going to put our brake caliper back on there, which we tied up earlier so it didn't fall down on us. What you probably should do is compress your piston a little bit so this will slide on easier. We're going to compress our piston a little bit so that way we can get our caliper back on the rotor. We were able to get our rotor on after compressing the caliper. Got to get to those Allen head bolts on the back and tighten them up. I know what you're thinking. All this is rust. And you know what? You're right, it is. But I'm cheap. So I'm going to drive it until it all breaks and falls apart. I might fix it. Or it might get scrapped. I don't know.
Or be a nice lawn ornament.
I don't have my 3/8 torque wrench here, so I'm just going to go till they feel good. So now we're ready to put the wheel on. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Hunter. Alright, now we're going to torque our lug nuts. They're supposed to be torqued to 120 foot-pounds. So, 165. There we go, 165.
You need an extension.
There we go. Now everything's torqued, and this job is done.